I have this old Apple Time Capsule, and this one's bad. It doesn't work. Something broke inside of it. Some component in there. Let's see, what is this one? This is a model number 1254, and it has a 500 gigabyte hard drive, and this one is made in 2007. So a lot of these are pretty much the same as far as what they're made out of. They may operate differently, but when they break down, there's not much you can do to repair them. It's not worth it. And so I've been working on repurposing these and using them for different things. I've used them for a base for a lamp. You can look at one of my videos where I did that, and I just installed like a desk lamp right here. But what I'm going to do with this one is turn it into a clock. So I'm going to take off the back here and take out the hard drive and everything inside. Sometimes the hard drive is still good, so those can be reformatted and used. Most of the other components are pretty much worthless, so usually those I just take to electronic recycling. But one of my other videos, you could look for it. It shows you how to open this. So I'm going to move on and to that one. Actually, it's the same one that I just did a video about that I'm going to make a clock out of. So once I've got the hard drive or the time capsule taken apart, you take out all the components that are in here, and I drilled a hole in here. I found one of my drill bits that matched up with the right size of the clock motor that I was going to use to go through it. You have to think about the shaft size of the clock motor also. These come in different sizes. So you got to make sure you get the right one, or else it won't be enough to go through here, the depth of this front piece of the time capsule. And this one comes through just about right. You can see that there, where it's kind of just enough to put the hands back on there. So after drilling out or taking out many of the components here, I left these pieces to mount the back of the back cover of the time capsule back on there. So I left those on there, and I had to use my Dremel and cut off this middle one because it would have interfered with where the clock motor is going to go. So I had to take that one off. It's got a little metal part here, but I think that'll be okay. I'm just going to put some glue here and glue it all down, and I think it'll come out all right, even though it's raised a little bit because of that metal piece there. I could try to take that off, but I don't think it's necessary, and I want to leave these other pieces on so I can mount the back plate back on there. So blow off some of that little metal dust from when I was using the Dremel on there. Okay, so drilling that actually took a little while because this thing, it's actually a piece of metal, and it's really hard metal. Apple made it pretty good. I think that's metal too, but to drill right through the middle of that took a little bit of work. And I had to find the exact center of this, and it ended up being right there. So I'm going to go ahead and fit this up here. Oh, and as far as clock motors, you could buy these on Amazon or on eBay. They're $5 to $20 each, depending on what kind you get. But what I do is I go down to the Goodwill, and I get these old clocks like this. And see, this one was $1.99. I've seen them for 99 cents, $1.49. It doesn't matter how screwed this up this is, because all you're going to do is take off this clock motor, And I usually bring a AA battery with me and put them in there just to make sure it still ticks. Then I could use the hands, throw all the rest of it away. Maybe I might use this cup, because you could put that on here, that plastic cover, and have a cover on top of there and the numbers if you wanted, but I'm just going to have it without that, just do the clock motor in the hands. I like having the second hand too. This one had a red one, so I'm going to use that on there. So I'm going to put this on here, and you can see that it still fits inside there. It's skinny enough where that motor will fit inside of the time capsule, so you got to think about that. Most of these motors are small enough to fit in there. And then the hour hand goes first on there. And I always like to put them at the 12 o'clock position, all three hands. Makes it easier getting them synchronized right. And the minute hand goes on that part. Make sure that they line up right so they don't touch each other. I'm going to be taking these off anyway to do the final gluing on there. Then the second hand inserts in there. It's down there quite a ways. Okay, then I'm going to throw a battery in here. There you go. So that'll be a cool time capsule clock. You could change the time back here, move the hands around. Just turning that little handle back there. And I would just put this back on, and I've got the screws here. Now I'm going to put them on, like maybe two here, then one on the corners, and then the original rubber backing piece. I'm just going to stick it on there. I think it'll still stick because it still has the adhesive. That's what's holding the screws in place there, so I think it'll hold on good enough. Then the only issues with this would be when you wanted to change the battery or change the time, you'd have to take all this stuff off of there, but it's not that hard to do. So there you go, a pretty cool Apple time capsule clock. Okay, so now I went ahead and I used some JB Weld and glued the clock motor to the underside of the time capsule. And I put the battery in, and you could hear it ticking. So now it's time to start putting it together. I went ahead and got a piece of foam and placed it so that it'll keep that battery from popping out, and just glued it to the underside of the back plate of the time capsule, just as a precaution there. So let's, I think we're gonna assemble the backside first, and then put the hands on, because you can't lay this down. I've got it with something propping it up so that it doesn't mess with the spindle there. Okay, so first thing, you line this part that's indented up with where the ports were on the back of the time capsule, on the side of the time capsule. And let's see here. There we go. Then I've got my micro screwdrivers. So we'll start putting the screws back in here. Not going to put them all in, just enough to hold the back plate on. One, another one here. I'm not going to put all the original screws back in, because some of them I've eliminated cut off the back of it where it originally mounted. So just putting in enough of them to hold it together. Okay, so I put 5 screws back in there. I'm going to remove all these extra ones from the adhesive here on the underside of the rubber for the back plate. There's the original rubber piece. So this one just goes like this. And it holds on there. So I don't need these anymore. So now we just have to put the hands on. Like I said before, I like to line them up at the 12 o'clock position. And let's see the time. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning here. Then I'll put the second hand on. There we go. So there's your Apple time capsule clock.